Hey guys, I just want to bring up an opportunity for resource investors. If you want to rub elbows with the big wigs and talk to companies directly that are handpicked by Rick Rule, well, you got to be in Boca Raton from July 7th to 11th for the Rick Rule Symposium. The event has become a premier event in the mining space, and they're going to have some pretty big speakers like Robert Friedland, Sean Rusin, and the great Rick Rule. And also, we're going to be there. You can meet the Deep Dive team in person. So if you're interested in rubbing elbow with some of the biggest heavy hitters in junior mining, check out the link below. Good afternoon, everyone. Today I'm chatting with Simon Quick from Canadian Copper. In this interview, we discuss the recent copper bull market and where Simon thinks it could be heading, as well as some of the challenges that have recently come up in the junior mining world and the mining world in general that may have impacted capital flowing into junior mining stocks. Also, we get into Canadian Copper. We discuss how the company has a very large measured and indicated deposit, as well as what the company's plans for 2024 are and how they got a mill next door that they may be able to work a deal with to provide feedstock for. All right, everybody, enjoy the interview. Simon, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having us.
So, Simon, let's start off with the price of copper. We've seen a lot of momentum this year. Obviously, anybody who's on social media or FinTwit sees the quotes from Jeff Curry, former commodity analyst with Goldman Sachs, talking about how copper is the new oil. And then we see the Robert Friedland quotes about how there's days of inventory left until we start to experience major shortages. And it's really seemed over the last year like this whole thesis is starting to come together. What's your read on the copper market right now?
I think it's very challenging to predict where the price is going, but there's three interesting indications here on the short, medium, and long term that I think, as an outside observer, are important to think about. On the short term side, if you look at the treatment charges, and these are what the mines pay the smelters to take copper concentrate and make this into copper cathode, and those continue to fall, which should suggest a tightening of the copper supply market, and that's what we saw in the last couple of months. I think on the medium term, if you look at where the seniors are performing on the merger and acquisition front, they're buying, you look at Glencore and Teck or BHP and Anglo, they're pricing $5 copper today for an acquisition that they know in a couple of years in their forecasts that maybe will be trading at $78 a pound. So I think that's important. And third, on the organic growth side, you look at where the seniors are venturing into, Mr. Bristow in Pakistan or Mr. Friedland in DRC. These are new jurisdictions on the horizon that I think people are looking for this metal in new frontiers. And I think on a risk-adjusted basis, that tells you they've got a much higher price per pound copper in their projections. So to me, all three combined represent, I think, quite a promising picture.
So Simon, you've worked in junior mining for a few years now with some of the legends in the space. And I'm curious what your insights on this are. And that is, it seems to me like when I look around at junior mining, there's a lot of companies that have a hard time moving projects forward. And the obvious big example, if we're talking about copper, would be First Quantum and the Cobre Panama mine, which effectively got shut down for environmental concerns. And I just kind of look around and I go, if I am an investor in junior mining and I see so many projects not moving forward, whether that's concerns with the locals or the environment, or some sort of national regulation that's been brought in, it makes me go, okay, how many of these companies actually have a shot of ever moving projects forward to the point where they can make money? And for myself as an investor, I have to look at these, 10-cent penny stocks or whatever, that I have a shot at a 10x return. That's my viewpoint of it, that if you're going to put money in harm's way, especially in junior mining, which is incredibly risky, you've got to think, hey man, in 3 years, 4 years, I've got a shot at a 10x, or else I don't see the point of putting that capital in. So do you think that we've kind of hit a point here where we're just seeing such challenges with projects moving forward that it has really hurt the junior mining investment space?
No, it has. And the trouble with mining is risk is certainly not monolithic. In each country, in each project, each company has to navigate their own, whether it's technical, permitting, or social challenges when looking at development. And to me, the most important part, I think, is focus. And if you look at across a lot of the junior space, if the portfolio is comprised of too many assets, it's really hard to allocate capital effectively. So I think in the case of Canadian Copper, that was a lot of the reason why we decided to sell some of these non-core assets. It wasn't our decision based on our feeling of them, because we think they're excellent assets, but really you can't allocate capital effectively and really focus and spend shareholder dollars where you would like to most effectively. And that's why that consideration of that sale included equity of the future company owner, so we could benefit in their upside.
So it's the first time we've had you on. Let's get into Canadian Copper. We've already started to. For our audience who's totally new to the story, what is the high level 2-minute elevator pitch for Canadian Copper?
I think similar to hit on the point of First Quantum, we've really focused on jurisdiction being the most important piece to our business model. We focused on Canada, but specifically New Brunswick. This is an area that's prolific in terms of mining. It's home to the second or third largest underground base metal mine, being Brunswick 12. And that's really the key pillar here, is start with jurisdiction. And then if you take the next step, it's an advanced asset. We've recently purchased the Murray Brook deposit. It's 650 million copper equivalent pounds and is 10 kilometers away from a fully built processing facility of 3,000 tons per day. And really part of the benefit of having such a large prolific area is the human capital to develop these assets is there, along with the government and the regulatory environment to really push through quickly an exploration, development, and development play. And that's why we're so bullish on that particular province in New Brunswick and Canadian Copper and how we fit into that environment.
Okay, so you mentioned that there is a mill nearby. We know we often hear this from various junior mining companies. Oh, there's a mill nearby. We're going to be able to use it. Why is it that you guys are going to have a shot of being able to provide feedstock into that mill?
You're right. I think proximity is important to be really specific on, and there's some nuance to this. As a crow flies, we're 10 kilometers west of this mill. It recently went into receivership in August of 2022. And part of that is the mill itself needed additional ore feed to give it economies of scale. We represent potentially 15, 16 years of mill feed for this operation. We're close by. We're connected by the same major highway, being 180. And some of our test work has been already tested at this facility. So really the consolidation makes a lot of sense practically. And we like our strategic position being that close and having the largest open pit resource in the region to really help build out that operation for an ongoing future.
So what are you guys working on this summer? I assume that there's going to be some exploration on the Murray Brook property or the Murray Brook West property.
Yeah, so we'll be looking to do some grassroots exploration on Murray Brook West, and principally that'll be our focus of growth, primarily because the Murray Brook deposit itself is a 98% measured and indicated resource and has already had $15 million of new exploration invested into it in 2013 to build that model. So we're quite excited with the main body resource, but also the exploration potential across this region in New Brunswick.
I find that so fascinating. So there's been $15 million historically spent on the Murray Brook project. And I look at you guys and you have an $8.1 million market cap. We are in what should be a huge copper bull market here, where we've seen the price of copper go from recently $4 to just around $5. I know we're trading a little bit south of there. How frustrating is it to look at your stock price knowing that your company's trading at like a 50% value to just the amount of money that's gone into the ground, proving out the amount of copper you guys have on your property, and actually discovering something and seeing that you have a whole bunch of copper, to see your share price trading at a 50% value of all that money that's gone into the ground?
I think we're a fairly new publicly traded company, and you have to have conviction both in your business model and your strategy. The copper price is going to help out the business considerably, and I think it's up to us to prove to our current and future shareholders that we deliver on our promises, and the share price will appreciate accordingly. But yes, I agree with you. A lot of these junior companies are trading at significant discounts relative to the underlying commodity price, and that's why I think there's a lot of opportunity to diversify from maybe the senior producers to the underappreciated juniors, assuming they're in the right jurisdiction with the right commodity exposure.
Okay, so I have to ask you about the cap table. You just mentioned that you guys are a relatively new issuer. what's the, and this isn't, I'm not trying to insinuate anything, just for our audience who invests in junior mining stocks. As you well know, there's a lot of bad actors out there, and they're just trying to create positions through founder stock and then hire a bunch of digital marketers and then basically use their founder shares to just plow into the market that the digital marketers create, thus giving those new investors never a chance to make any money on their investment because that was never the goal. So I always like to talk to our audience about how important share structure is if you have a shot of making any money in your investment in the first place. So what can you tell us about your cap table? What's sort of the average prices paid for the shares? And are there any noteworthy investors that are worth mentioning?
Sure. So a couple things on the cap table. First, I own 5% of the company. My cost base is between 8.5 cents. So the only way that we'll be able to make money here as management is through a higher share price. And further to that, to close this acquisition, I lent the company interest-free a $300,000 loan secured against my house to backstop that acquisition. And really, that was just my conviction for why I thought it was the right move. In terms of current shareholders, I would note Ocean Partners. They're a metals trading offshoot group, and they bought into this company understanding that the Murray Brook asset was well delineated in terms of a drilling perspective, but also it had line of sight to potential production near term. And generally, you don't see off-takers come into the sub 10 million market cap space. So I think that should be a nod for both the technical risk, but also a qualifier in terms of the group that's managing Canadian copper.
So Simon, I know you don't have a crystal ball, but where do you see the company in 5 years? Assuming that the price of copper agrees with us and we start to see some capital flow into names and you've got some money to work with, where do you see the company going in 5 years?
I think our strategic advantage is having a completely drilled off large VMS deposit, good grade, 1.4%, equivalent open pit next to a mill. So within this 5-year time horizon, I expect us to be feeding that mill in some structure, shape, or form. And for me personally, that's important. Most of my career has been developing assets in Mexico and in the US. And really, I would like to bring home a new operation in the Bathurst region of New Brunswick. We're excited to create employment there and leave a good legacy.
So if I'm an investor watching this or a potential investor and I'm trying to evaluate management over the remainder of 2024, what am I expecting out of the company? What does the key milestones, timelines for the remainder of the year look like?
So I think first and foremost, we'll be monitoring the CCII process with this Caribou mill that is going to emerge from bankruptcy and look to leverage on that exit and consolidate where possible. That is in the best interest of our shareholders, number one. And number two, continue to organically grow our exposure to in situ copper resources within the New Brunswick Bathurst region.
Well, Simon, thanks very much for hopping on here. I appreciate you taking the time to do this. I think that deals like yours are going to be super interesting as we continue to see copper prices show strength, we'll put it that way. And there's going to be a group of investors that are going to start doing their homework on these names that have those sort of those, I'm not going to say drill ready, you're well beyond that, but actual deposits where there are some measured and indicated pounds in the ground. And I hope that you'll come back on here in the future and continue to update us as you execute on your strategy and continue to roll out what could end up being a pretty substantial copper asset.
No, thanks so much, Steve, and for giving companies like ours a potential to get our voice and our strategic message across. It's very important.
Thanks, Simon.
Have a good day.
All right, everybody. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this interview, please smash that like button, subscribe, and ring that notification bell. Also, let me know what you think in the comment section. Thanks, everyone.